Hey guys, Mark here from AceCart Gaming, back with another discussion video on the future of the Sonic game series. I've been thinking a bit lately about the video I put out towards the end of last year, covering comments made by Sega's Chief Creative Officer at the Tokyo Game Show. He spoke a bit about potential new gameplay styles for the series, saying that he hopes we'll all look forward to recent gameplay styles from other games appearing in future Sonic titles. And while, like most things from Sega, this could mean literally nothing, it got me thinking about the potential implications of this statement for the long-awaited return of other playable characters in Sonic games. Could it mean Sonic Team have been looking to other successful games for inspiration on new gameplay mechanics specifically for its roster of popular missing-in-action characters? I think a lot of fans, myself included, really hope this is the case. And even if it's not, it's an interesting discussion either way. We've been stuck in this weird limbo of Sonic Team walking on eggshells around how it handles its characters for far too long now. It's time they finally take the bull by the horns and deal with this issue head on, rather than repeatedly taking what I honestly think is the lazy way out, creating cookie-cutter games over longer periods of time than it ever used to take for them to make games. Games with much more variety, creativity, and depth than any of their recent titles. In this video, we're going to discuss the history of playable characters in the series, the various ways in terms of mechanics that many fan favourites could potentially return as playable characters in the next mainline game, and how it all might work best in terms of narrative. Sonic Adventure 1 and 06 style with individual stories that cross over, or Sonic Adventure 2 style where each character is a subpart of a single story, their own dedicated games. It will definitely be interesting to see. But just before we get started, if you enjoy videos analysing the different games and characters in the Sonic series, you should consider subscribing to the channel. I create lots of deep dive analysis videos on Sonic characters and the series lore, as well as a variety of discussion videos, just like this one. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and make sure to check the bell icon to be notified when I release more. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Multiple playable characters have been a thing in Sonic games from as far back as the second outing, and the introduction of everyone's favourite two-tailed fox. And while an extremely half-baked addition, he had no unique abilities since he couldn't actually fly in Sonic 2, Sonic Team continued to add to and improve their roster of playable characters, adding Knuckles as a brand new character with his own set of unique abilities, and fleshing out the utility of Tails in the very next game. Tails played through Sonic's exact stages, but thanks to his ability to fly and swim, was able to explore new areas Sonic couldn't reach. Knuckles had an awesome introduction, one that was fully supported by the narrative, and while he went through the same zones as Sonic and Tails, his unique abilities and knowledge of Angel Island often brings him on completely different routes through the zones, which as a kid just blew my tiny little mind. So for all intents and purposes, it seemed Sonic Team had a good handle on how to manage multiple characters in the same game, at least in 2D. Sonic's transition into 3D attempted to pull off the same thing but on a much larger scale, as Sonic Adventure 1 seeing the introduction of 3 additional playable characters on top of Sonic, Tails and Knuckles. And yeah, some of them were more fun to play than others, but for the most part, this 6 separate stories with overlapping narratives worked exceptionally well, with the only character catching any serious flack being Big. But that one flaw was the thing that got shouted about the loudest, and as a result, Sega were a lot more conservative when it came to the sequel, and Sonic Adventure 2 seen a streamlining of its gameplay into the 3 most popular playstyles from the original: Speed, Mech, and Treasure Hunting. And instead of 6 separate stories focusing on a single character, the story was split in 2, with the player rotating between the different playstyles for the hero and dark stories. And as you might expect, some people preferred one approach over the other, but at the time, most people were perfectly happy with both games. But the end of the Dreamcast marked Sega's departure from the hardware business, and now they had to get used to existence as a third-party developer. This change seemed to really shake Sega, as they now had to deal with a whole bunch of people who were potentially never Sega or Sonic fans. And as more and more new players entered the world of Sonic, Sega tried to bend over backwards to please them, with its half-reboot, half-sequel Sonic Heroes, designed to be an easy jump-on point for new fans. But this, along with their casual switching up of the formula, didn't give them their intended outcome. And as the splintering of the fanbase began, reviews of their games began to spiral towards average, evident by the huge difference in scores for the likes of Sonic Adventure 2 once the games went multi-platform. And with each consecutive release, the reviews became harsher and harsher, and by the mid-2000s, it was seemingly cool to bash Sonic games. This sent Sega into a bit of a reactionary spiral, as they attempted to reach some form of middle ground with the amount of different characters and playstyles in 06. But since that game failed for many other reasons, they then limped on to Sonic Unleashed, with zero confidence in their other characters, slapping another playstyle on Sonic for the Hedgehog stages, and refusing to take what they now see as a huge gamble on anyone else. And this has been the way ever since. A pretty fun but ultimately inferior version of the classic gameplay did appear alongside modern Sonic in Generations, but because this was received pretty well, validated Sega's theory that people didn't want to play as anyone besides Sonic anymore. So Sonic Team did a lazy and just slapped a coat of paint and some bumper stickers on this same idea for Forces a whole 6 years later, shoehorning the Avatar character into the mix as well. But these are all just different skins of Sonic. And after 13 years of the same approach when it comes to characters, the cracks have well and truly started to show. But time is a strange thing, and the winds of change have brought fresh perspective to a lot of people, with most fans strongly in favour of other playable characters making a return. A big shift from the attitude a little over 10 years ago. But up until now, Sonic Team seems to have taken the steady rise in this point of view, as just have all the characters appear for no reason, including as many of them as possible in Generations and Forces. But people want meat on the bones of these characters, both narratively and mechanically. Many were first introduced with the care and attention they deserved, and as a result, are now extremely popular with the fans. But people don't want some half-hearted nostalgia pandering. They want the characters who appear to be relevant to the plot and have important actions to carry out within it. And what better way to do that than to make them playable again? And yeah, I can see the game journalist headlines if this were ever to happen. Sega repeating past mistakes, reviving its inflated roster of characters and unpopular playstyles. But this is again where I say Sega and Sonic Team need to ignore the critics. The critics have not liked Sonic games for a long time, and trying to please them will only come at the expense of the fans, the people who actually buy and play your games. As for which characters should be made playable again, Tails, Knuckles and Shadow would be my own top picks, but I'd also really like to see Amy and Silver get another chance. I could be selfish and say the Chaotix too, but I know that realistically we'll be lucky to get 1 or 2 extra playable characters at most, so I wouldn't set my expectations very high for more. That is, if they intend to introduce them with any depth. Silver's playstyle was pretty good in my opinion, and unique enough in itself to set him apart from everyone else. The fact that it was buggy and inconsistent wasn't the fault of the playstyle, it was a consequence of the game being rushed, so I'd be more than happy to see his mechanics from 06 make a return. Amy is a great fit for some Mario-style gameplay, with slower, more deliberate and tighter platforming, and using her hammer to reach higher ground like before. But in all likelihood, I think if anybody will be returning as playable characters, it will be some combination of Tails, Knuckles and Shadow. Sonic Team are in a tough position, a position they put themselves in, but still. They now create content for a seriously split fanbase. If they try to return previous characters by updating past mechanics, they are open to criticism from people who dislike those mechanics, whether the updates improve them or not. If they opt to try something new, it could work out really well, but equally it could just alienate everyone, or even create another subset of fans who prefer this approach and will be pissed when something else inevitably replaces it. It's an unenviable position, and I would almost feel sorry for them were it not a problem of their own making. But I believe the one easy win for them is Shadow. All they need to do from my perspective is have him return as a Sonic clone in terms of his mechanics. And some might ask why bother if he's technically just a Sonic reskin. And my counterpoint is,
shut up! That's why!
Look, this is where narrative importance comes in. Nobody cared that in Sonic Adventure 2 Shadow played just like Sonic. It was his character that people fell in love with. And playing like Sonic was a fantastic bonus, as it was the most appealing style in the game for a lot of people. There was no need to slow his gameplay down, give him guns, or pointless and awkward vehicles to use. Just let him play like Sonic, and bring back his proper characterization. That's how he was introduced, and that is when he was most successful. When it comes to Knuckles, they literally have a treasure trove of games to take inspiration from, including their own. And what springs to mind for me most is a scaled down Zelda or Darksiders style dungeon puzzler / treasure hunt, with combat also probably scaled down mechanically compared to those games. This would be a nice nod to his treasure hunting stage roots, while expanding his gameplay to include basic puzzle solving and some nice combat sections. And I think his climbing and gliding abilities would suit this style really well. Sonic Heroes and Unleashed also had larger emphasis on combat, with Unleashed basically creating a new 3D template that would have fit Knuckles perfectly, but instead giving it to the Hedgehog. Both of these games, in my opinion, would be fine to use as inspiration for Knuckles' gameplay in the future. And that's not even mentioning the potential for a spiritual successor or revamp of the original treasure hunting stages, as these had their fair share of fans too. But regardless of what Sega chooses in the end, the will has to be there to add the polish and shine, both in terms of gameplay and narrative. Where things do get a bit tricky though, is with Tails, as the fanbase is fairly split on how it wants to see our favourite two-tailed fox boy make his grand return as a playable character. Return on foot as he did in Adventure 1, a mech like in Adventure 2, or maybe even a brand new take on his gameplay. Conker's Bad Fur Day always springs to mind for me when I think of potential new gameplay for Tails, as the tight controls in platforming centered heavily around Conker's ability to hover across large gaps using his tail, and I think this would translate really well into gameplay for Tails. If you haven't played Conker's Bad Fur Day, think Tails' gameplay in 06, but good. As for the battle between the two adventure playstyles, I'm good to see either return, as long as Tails isn't able to nuke the stages in 50 seconds like in Sonic Adventure 1, and the stages are more geared towards him and his abilities. I just never found flying through chains of air boosts and skipping most of the level that fun. I'm one of those people who actually enjoyed the mech stages in Sonic Adventure 2, so I wouldn't be against this making a return either, but I'd much prefer they speed up the gameplay and make the mechs much more agile, with all stages working as they did for Eggman in Cosmic Wall. That stage was just so friggin' fun, and I'll never know how it existed in the same game as the others, yet no one thought to bump up the speed and open up the other stages a bit. Tails has a history in both styles, and I think his mechanical engineering skills work well with the idea of him using a mech. He grew as a character in Sonic Adventure 1 to realise he doesn't need to be like Sonic to be useful, embracing his own skills and becoming his own person. So I think a hybrid approach between these two styles could work really well. Have him able to exit the mech, or include subsections of stages where he uses it. But as I said with Knuckles, the most important thing here is the level of polish. There's no point including other characters at all if it's going to be broken or just an obvious tacked on feature. The same level of effort needs to go into these stages as Sonic's, and the same goes for the narrative. I don't care if it's 6 separate stories that overlap like in Sonic Adventure 1, a rotating system like in Sonic Adventure 2, or a hybrid model like in 06. The delivery method doesn't matter at all if the narrative itself is bad, and we can only hope that the shake-up in staffing at Sonic Team and the potential return of other playable characters might be a good sign that things are changing towards the positive. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Which characters would you like to see made playable again? And how would you like to see their playstyles implemented? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, if you enjoyed the video and found the content interesting, please consider subscribing, and throw a like on the video if you did enjoy it. I make lots of discussion videos on the Sonic series just like this one, as well as deep dive analysis videos on Sonic characters and the series lore. I also do reviews and retrospectives of Sonic games, and from time to time other games too. So if any of this sounds interesting to you and you'd like to show your support, hit that subscribe button. Your subs really help the channel, and each and every one of them is hugely appreciated by me. But for now, a big thank you for watching, and as always guys, take care.